I'm not going to lie, Michael. I did some research before. Right, so, okay, this is the thing is what you did. It's your fault, Michael. It's your fault.
Is it?
It's your fault. Yeah, it is.
Because I research things a lot because I'm a very unbiased, objective.
I remember you said something to me once about this, and I was like, "Oh, The Incredibles. I'm gonna see what it's all about." Or the thing that you mentioned. And,
this is very cryptic, Luke.
I regret.
I know what this must be. Okay, yeah.
Do you know what it is?
I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say you're talking about Incredibles porn.
Yes.
Okay.
And not just any
Incestables? Is it the Incestables?
Oh, I don't know what it's called.
Okay.
What a great title.
The title I know is Incestables.
Yeah, it was it's the Funtari. Is that correct?
Oh, Futanari.
It's not even called Funtari. Futanari. That aspect of it.
The fun
which was
Futanari.
And I was like, I remember you mentioned it to me, and so I was like, you know what, I'll see what it is. It could be an interesting cold open. And Jesus, mother loving Christ. I
feel like that's the type of thing that I'm surprised I didn't send onto the group chat, because just as an aside, I sent a...
You sent so much stuff.
I sent a picture of Bart Simpson being fucked up the arse by a black guy in and he was turning around going, "Ay caramba." Anyway, yeah, that will do as a cold open.
Yeah.
Back up, chump, you know Biggie Smalls rips it quick and kicks it quick. You know how black niggas get with the hoods for tees, with the boots with trees. Flipping trees, making crazy cheese. Hitting buckshots at niggas that open spots on the avenue. Take my loot and I'm bagging. Pimping hoes that drive Volvos and rodeos. Flash the roll, make a wet in they pantyhose. Damn, a nigga style is unorthodox, grips the clock. When I walk down the crowded blocks, just in case a nigga wanna act out, I just black out, blow the motherfucking back out. That's a real nigga for you.
There was a Hall of Fame for cartoon porn. Then I'm sure that story, what's it called, The Incestables?
Yes.
That would be in it.
Anyway, I'll do the intro now. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out relatively recently at the cinema and see whether or not they hold up upon a second watch. And this week we are looking at The Incredibles. I'm Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and we're watching The Incredibles to celebrate the release of The Incredibles 2. I don't know if it has a more sophisticated title than that. And Luke, why don't you...
The Incredibles 2,
okay. Why don't you tell us a thing or The Incredibles 2 about The Incredibles?
Certainly, Michael. So, The Incredibles. It's a 2004 American computer-animated superhero film written and directed by Brad Bird and produced by Pixar Animation Studios. It was released on the 5th of November 2004 in the United States. And do you want to have a crack? Oh, I just didn't say who's it starring. It stars Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Sarah Vowell, Spencer Fox, Jason Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, Elizabeth Pena, and do you want to have a go at the budget?
Yeah, I really don't know much about kind of the relative costs of animation. I'm going to go for... I think this is over 100 million, because I just think this kind of animation would have been quite expensive back then. I'm actually going to go for 160 million.
It is only 92.
Really? Oh, well. Guess I'm wrong about how much it costs to animate things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I feel like the budget for Pixar films has actually increased quite a bit. Because I'm sure the budget for like Toy Story 3 was something insane. And the box office, I'll guess that too.
Yeah, guess that.
I saw this film at the cinema. I remember that. So seeing as I saw it, I assume everyone else did too. I'm going to go for a tentative 520 million.
520? It's 633.
Okay. Well
Well
done then.
So, very impressive. So, obviously, Michael, this is the all-important question. Did you like The Incredibles?
I loved it, Luke. I thought it was just a real fun. Just fun. Just great. Did you like it, Luke?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was really good, really fun. and I think I'm going to be saying that word a lot for today. But yeah, I did like it.
Yes, I think this was fundamentally a good film.
Fantastic stuff. That's why you're on the pod.
But even when we love films, Luke, we still have nitpicks. So, did you have any nitpicks for this film?
I had 5.
I had 7.
Fucking hell! Wow, I thought my 5 would be a lot.
Yeah, well, it was. I don't know. I mean, some of mine are like ridiculous, as is often the case. But do your 5 first. I think at least one of them will probably overlap on. Let's see.
Okay, yeah. So this first one, I think, this one seems right up your street. So my first nitpick is the fact that Dash moves so quickly and far quicker than he moves throughout the rest of the movie when he's putting the pin on his teacher's seat. The camera can't even catch it, so it suggests he's moving like hundreds of miles per hour if the camera can't even register that he's moved off his seat.
You know what, Luke? We can work out exactly how fast he moves by approximating how fast the frame rate of that camera would be, and then approximating roughly how big the classroom is, and then going from there and back, doubling that, and saying that he moves that fast in a lot of cameras, they take 24 frames per second. So in 1/24th of a second, he moved about 6 meters. So that is 6 times 24. We don't do maths, do we, Luke? But whatever 6 times 24 is, that's how fast he moved a second. But despite that, I actually didn't write that down, Luke, and that is a good point. It is inconsistent, which I guess maybe maybe we will talk about that when we talk about their powers. Legitimate point,
so,
Luke.
Yeah, I guess we will. Yeah, I just wanted to make that point. Also, the teacher is called Bernie and sounds like Bernie Sanders.
I was thinking that. Yes.
Yeah. So that right there is Dash there is symbolising the centrists in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, symbolising Hillary Clinton. To be honest, I don't actually know. I know that the DNC rigged it, but I don't actually know the specifics of them rigging it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a topic for another time.
Right.
So my next one is Mr. Incredible gets fired, and on the very same day, he gets this opportunity to go to this island, like this message from that attractive assistant of Syndromes. And I just think that's a bit of a coincidence.
You know what, Luke? You're quite good at pointing out coincidences. I feel like you often point out coincidences, and I tend not to. And yeah, I didn't get that one either, but that is still good.
Yeah, there's no correlation between him getting fired and him getting that letter, or that video letter, whatever it was. So yeah, just a bit of a coincidence there. Next one, Helen goes into the bathroom on the jet to change into her super suit, even though she doesn't think there's anyone on the jet.
Yeah, I mean,
weird behaviour.
Maybe that's just maybe Americans. I feel like Americans are very modest, because obviously in Europe, in the continent, they just walk around topless all the time. The women they have there, they just walk around topless on their beaches and stuff. In the UK, we're kind of like half European, half American, and we don't walk around topless. So the logical extension is the Americans must walk around in full body wetsuits when they're at the beach.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. They're
very conservative, so they're very socially conservative and very, very upset by, there are Americans who don't swear. Like adult Americans who are like, oh yeah, I don't swear.
Yeah, what you should do, Mike, I'm perfectly, what the hell was that?
Sorry, a little metal ball just fell off my book.
Okay. Yeah, I'm aware of the fact that Americans don't like swearing. All you need to do is hear or read about the story surrounding Steph Curry when he swore at the end of, I believe it was Game 3.
What was the swear word? Was it darn?
Western Conference Finals.
Did he go,
no, he said this. He said, "This is my fucking house," on TV, and obviously you can't hear the words, but you can hear he mouthed it after he scored a basket. And apparently his mum was very upset about it, and he was very upset about it, and he apologised for his awful language. So that's
it's like up there with Bill Cosby. Yeah. They're gonna have these like scandals when after the hashtag Me Too movement, it's gonna be like the hashtag Watch Your Language, you young whippersnapper. It's gonna be the next big thing.
The guy's 30 years old and his mum's telling him you can't swear. I mean, that's just, Steph Curry's unusual for a basketball player, but yeah, again, it just shows, like, Americans, they don't like swearing. They are particularly conservative. So that's maybe why Helen went to the bathroom.
I bet she calls it the restroom too.
Yeah, the restroom.
Yeah, because she can't bring herself to refer to it by the actual function of what it is.
God, fucking Americans. Fucking conservatism as well, Michael.
Can I use the
Almost.
restroom, please?
Okay, next one. So these suits are pretty amazing, right?
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible. But I don't see the point in these suits being so amazing, you know, ability to survive rocket launches of 1,000 degrees of heat if their heads aren't covered. Because obviously if a rocket hits them, the rest of their body might be fine, but their head's gonna, like, disintegrate, or their head's gonna burn alive. They're gonna burn alive because their head's sticking out of their suit if they're in a 1,000-degree fire. So, you know, the suit's all very impressive, but unless it covers the whole face or head, then it's pretty pointless because you're still gonna die.
I can see where you're going wrong in your presumption there, Luke. See, the thing is, what they're actually concerned about, the reason why the suits are built to be so lasting, is because if they weren't, then there's a risk that the suits would burn up before the person themselves is disintegrated. And for that brief nanosecond in between the suit burning up and the person disintegrating, they would be naked. And Americans can't have that. So the suit is only designed to withstand that so that they're not naked. So that when they discover the pile of burning rubble that once was a human being, it will be covered, looking decent by a super suit that has survived it.
Okay, I'm going to talk about politics actually at the end of all this.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I love to throw it into any movie discussion that we have.
Your typical SJW, you.
So, next up, my last one is, how does Syndrome find out where the Parr family lives at the end of the movie?
Because he's lost all his he wasn't able to find them when he had all of the resources and intelligence at his disposal. But then, what he really needs to do, the losing all of that, was the kick up the bum he needed to pick himself up by his bootstraps and just magically.
Yeah.
He just, once he stopped trusting in his huge legion of technology and henchmen and sexy assistants, he was just buckled down, dealt with it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, those are my 5. What are yours?
I can't believe it. You didn't get any of mine. A lot of mine are kind of silly, to be honest. One of them is a bit of a joke. So Mr. Incredible and I have basically the same job, which is, I noticed it, which is, so I disliked the slandering of the insurance industry. We care. Here at Life Search, we care. Right.
I thought you were gonna,
no, I wasn't
stick up to your company more.
I wasn't. We always talk about the families we've saved. You don't say like that you've made money for the company or got a customer. It's you have to say we've saved a family. They're like, how many families?
Sounds like a cult, Michael.
I know, it's bizarre. Anyway, no. So apart from that, I think everything else I've got is more serious. So first of all, okay, what is leftover steak? Because they're at this meal and the mum goes, it's leftover night, you can have steak. Now steak isn't something that can be left over. You can have leftover pizza, you can have leftover bolognese, you can have leftover whatever. But a steak is something where you cook it and then you eat it. You can't have a whole steak as a leftover. You
know what, Michael? You're always pretty big on the food nitpicks. That's what I've noticed about you.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
If there's any food problem that the movie has, you're right on it.
Yeah, I think it's because it's all the binging of Babish I watch. I'm practically a professional chef now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last episode I was talking about my food, and that was a cold open. Okay, so this is also comes under power. In fact, actually, I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to say because this comes under powers, and I think it's worth talking about because we're going to talk about powers specifically, which I didn't know when I first. So yeah, I'm going to leave that one. So next one. So Syndrome builds this robot that's supposed to kill Mr. Incredible, and then it fails, so he builds a stronger, better version of the robot. Here's the thing. Okay, number one, this is the number one problem. He says that he built it to be stronger because Mr. Incredible beat the last one, and yet he built it with the exact same fault that the last one had, which is that it can pierce itself. So, I mean, I don't know, it seems kind of weird that he was able to defeat it the exact same way when the entire purpose of the thing was to be built, with the knowledge of how Mr. Incredible beat it before. Number two, and this is my main thing, it's inferior to the last one because the last one hit itself, several times. Mr. Incredible hides inside it. It hits itself several times, and then it's still got one last gasp of air in it, or life in it, and and that's how he destroys it. This one just goes down with one hit. So it's actually even easier to beat than the first one.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go down a different direction. So obviously, Mr. Incredible finds out that Syndrome has been able to kill all these superheroes, and each time he's testing this new robot, and obviously this new model of robot, each time each time the superhero defeats it, he gets a better one, etc. But so this is his latest model, this last robot, but he doesn't actually let it defeat
Mr. Incredible.
Mr. Incredible.
That's a good point. That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
I mean, he gets him. The robot captures him, but he doesn't actually kill him. So I don't know in that instance if Mr. Incredible could break out, but we don't know, and he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not strong enough. Like maybe Mr. Incredible can break out of its grip, and and isn't the whole point of his exercise to kill all the superheroes?
Yeah.
Like that's because he doesn't really need the robot to be powerful. All he needs is for the robot to be kind of dangerous, so he swoops in and saves the day. So he doesn't really need the robot to be that powerful anyway. So a bit of. So see, I just thought of another nitpick of yours, but yeah. So that's all.
You know what? I mean, what I was kind of thinking on a related note is that when at the end, because I couldn't remember exactly how this film ended because I haven't seen it in a while, and I was thinking, Syndrome is going to send them to New York City to fight the robot, and then once they fail, he's going to show up and save the day to prove that he's a real superhero, so they'll have kind of like a point of comparison. So, the reason he's trained it to defeat these superheroes, and the reason he's keeping Mr. Incredible alive, is because he's going to send Mr. Incredible to try and fight it, and then he's not going to be able to do it, and then Syndrome's going to show up and be a hero. He doesn't do that, so yeah, there's no reason for him to keep him alive. Next one. So a big thing in this is that like the government's saying, superheroes are costing us money. Now, there are like just so many ways that superheroes could save the government money. So I was thinking to myself, they're always like, you da-da-da. But they could just be like, hey, Dash, can you, run around and spin a turbine so that we can, take some money out of the renewable energy budget? There's so many ways that the superheroes could be paying for all of the damage they cause. And I was just thinking to myself, why are they always complaining about money? They've got these super talented people and they're not using their assets, and their assets are fundamentally valuable.
I don't know. Like, you're going to have to do a cost-benefit analysis of it. And to be honest,
what they need is a superhero whose superpower is accounting.
I can imagine superheroes costing more than they actually save / could generate. I can imagine that. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one.
Well, I think it depends on the superhero. I feel like the super strong superheroes cause a lot of damage. I feel like Dash is a very kind of like minimal impact superhero when you think about it, because he basically just moves really fast. So I think I feel like they really should have been more selective. They should have been like, okay, if your superpower is lifting up buildings or throwing Zod into buildings, then you can't do that. Anyway, penultimate
throwing
one.
Zod into buildings.
Penultimate one. A pretty basic one, but Syndrome has this robot that is supposed to be able to detect life. I guess it's not technically a robot, it's like a thing that moves around. Now, Mr. Incredible defeats it by hiding behind someone's bones, and then it comes up and says no life reading. Now, pretty much anything that I can think of, any modern technology I can think of that would serve a similar purpose would be able to detect Mr. Incredible. A heartbeat sensor could detect Mr. Incredible, thermal radiation or infrared could detect Mr. Incredible. Any technology we have today could detect Mr. Incredible hanging out behind that thing. And clearly it's designed, it says, no life signal detected. So clearly it's designed to detect life. But it doesn't seem to be using any of the established means in human society of seeing whether or not there's a life sign. It uses literally just a scanner that I guess detects physical.
Yeah.
Very, very stupid. Very stupid. 2 out of 10. And finally, and this one's an obligatory one. Like, covering up your eyes like that doesn't actually protect your identity. I just thought, I know that's a common superhero thing, but I was like, you can still tell who people are if they cover up their things.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay,
I've got to remember to move my my superpower thing to the superpower section. There we go. And now we move on to the plot.
The plot. So I'll just give a quick summary of the plot. So this movie, The Incredibles, is all about a family of superheroes who are forced to hide their powers and live a quiet suburban life but Mr. Incredible's desire to help people draws the entire family back into a battle with a former fan called Syndrome, who wants to wipe out all the superheroes with his killer robot. So there you go. That is the Incredibles, and of course the Incredibles actually succeed in defeating Syndrome and his evil robot. So I just wanted to talk about the concept of this movie, Michael.
Yes, you did.
It's such a simple idea, but also such a great idea. You know, a superhero who settles down and lives with a family, and they have to live through the trials and tribulations that all normal suburban families have to live through. I think the idea is relatable and it's funny. I don't know why it's set in the 1960s.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, I didn't know exactly when it was set because I don't look these things up because I'm not a nerd. But yeah,
I didn't look it up, Michael. I just inferred.
Okay, you inferred it. See, I could tell it was 50s to 70s, but I'm not some kind of genius who can detect decades that happened millions of years ago.
Well, yeah. So the furniture and the houses were pretty 1960s, and also the dates that some of the superheroes who were wearing capes died. If you remember Edna Mode talking to.
Oh yeah, I don't pay attention to different details like that.
Yeah, she said like these superheroes died in.
No, yeah, I remember that.
57, 58, yeah. So this is either 60s or 70s actually, because it was 15 years after Mr. Incredible stopped being a superhero.
Yeah.
So it's either 50s/70s, whatever, around that time. Sorry, 60s/70s, around that time. I don't know why it's set there. I think perhaps that it's because it was age of innocence and the age of what's it called? It's like the golden age of American.
Yeah.
The American middle class, and so it's like the most middle class time in America. So perhaps that's why it was set then. It just makes sense because it's like a typical suburban life that these superheroes lead. So I guess set it in a time where that
simpler
was
time, a time when there was nothing wrong in the 60s. Literally everyone was happy in the 60s and nobody was protesting about anything.
Well, for white people that was the case. So there you go. That's I think why it's set in the 1960s. But I'm not sure. But yeah, the whole movie is just really simple, fun, hypothetical, and it was done well, and that's why it was such a hit. I think Mr. Incredible going through a midlife crisis.
You know what, Luke? I wrote that down. I wrote, this film is about a midlife crisis.
Yeah. So,
you could splice this film into American Beauty and it would just be seamless. Fantasizes about having sex with his daughter's best friend, and then he is a superhero.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So Mr. Incredible is going through this midlife crisis, which I think, again, is something that's very relatable and fun to watch. This is obviously because the superheroes have to go into hiding. I think it would be even better if they had gone in a different direction, if he had to give it up because he had to raise a family and not forced to by the law to give up on his dreams, as obviously most people aren't forced by the law to give up on their dreams. It's kind of like, a typical midlife crisis. I mean, the only reason he's in that position is because the government forced him to stop being a superhero. But obviously the government pays these superheroes, so it doesn't work with the actual story for him to give up on his dreams because he has a family. Because obviously, if you can just continue being a superhero and getting paid if you have a family.
Do you know what, Luke? I just realised something incredible. Okay.
What?
So in this film, there is a race of people who are, the master race, and they're superior to everyone else. And then in the 1960s, the government forces them to stop being better than everyone else and makes them become equal with everyone else. So what I'm saying is that this film is actually secretly a pro-segregation, pro-Jim Crow, anti-civil rights film.
Yeah, but these people are in the minority, though. That's the difference.
That's true. Oh, so it's about the Jews.
I thought that's the direction we're going to go in at first, because it makes more sense because they are the minority, but no, it's not about the Jews, Michael. Not everything's about the Jews.
Well, hold on. I thought I mentioned a guy whose superpower was accounting earlier. He's probably a Jew.
Yeah, if there was a guy whose superpower was accounting, then you would have a case. And it's for the Jews. No, that's a bit of a racist joke there.
Yeah, it's racist.
Yeah, all in good fun. So, just an aside, obviously Mr. Incredible gets sued, but I think obviously the reason he gets sued was because he saved somebody's life. But I have to think there are better cases for suing a superhero that would have worked.
Yeah.
Saving somebody's life, like destroying a building, for instance. I think it's a bit of a it gets the plot going, I know, and all that. But you could have just have him like destroy a building and like somebody was killed and it was ruled unnecessary because saving somebody's life. I don't know if you can actually sue somebody for that, whether they're a superhero or not.
But yeah, you know what, Luke? I'm very suspicious nowadays of any film or TV show that parodies litigation culture, because there's a documentary called Hot Coffee, and the basic premise of the documentary and what the documentary kind of shows is that there was money in the, I think, 90s. Of course, the famous case is a woman sued McDonald's because her coffee was too hot, which is why it's called Hot Coffee. There was money in the 90s put into this massive propaganda media campaign to be like, look at all these people suing everyone, it's terrible. And the companies who, didn't want to be sued were behind that. So every single time I watch a film that's like, oh, look, the problem is people suing people, I'm like, maybe there's some sneaky stuff going on here.
Okay, yeah. I think you're taking it a bit too seriously.
Maybe someone's behind this, Luke. No, I didn't really care. But I do think, I think it's become a bit of a meme now. It's like, oh, people are suing everyone. I don't think it's a conspiracy so much as it's just a social convention. But yeah, I agree with you that there is a very tame reason. I guess it's supposed to be kind of like funny in a way, because it's like, I guess if it was a more reasonable thing, it would be less funny.
You would be more on the side of the people doing the suing.
Yeah, that's true.
This time you're on the side of Mr. Incredible, because it's like, well, obviously he had to save that person's life. I mean, how can you sue somebody for saving somebody's life? So yeah, I guess you are correct. In that assumption. But yeah, so that's just the concept of the movie.
You know what, Luke? I actually wanted to say something else about the concept, or generally about the concept.
Well, actually, so did I, but you go first. Yeah.
Oh, see, the way you said it, you made it sound a lot like you were wrapping up there, Luke, so shame on you.
That was a mistake by me. Yeah.
So the thing I want to talk about is kind of the concept of Pixar movies in general, which is they all kind of, well, the early Pixar movies that everyone loves, The Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Toy Story, they all start with like, you could kind of just say, what if you took X kind of broad thing and made it like about real life? So it's kind of like, what if you took fish and they were, like human beings and had their own fish society? What if you had, superheroes and they had to live like a normal life? That's how you make a Pixar film. And then you go, okay, well, what's going to be our specific theme? So Finding Nemo, it's like, well, what if we took, the theme of overprotective parenting and then we made, blah, blah, blah. So I like, it's a good example of a concept that works quite well. You say, we'll take this specific thing, we'll make it human, we'll make it societal, and then we'll take a societal or personal problem, and we'll say, what if we took, in this case, it's a midlife crisis. So I was going to say, that was Pixar's winning formula, and I think you can kind of still see it now, but they were, I mean, all of the early Pixar films, I think everyone agrees, were great.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. A lot of these Pixar films, it's a very simple thing that they do. They take something and apply it to real life. What if this was real life? Like Finding Nemo, what if fish could talk? What if toys could talk?
What if bugs could talk?
What if bugs could talk? And, hey, it's just bugs, but they act like us humans do in real life. It's superheroes, but they act like we do in real life with this movie. So I just wanted to talk about, again, the fact that this movie is a parody of superhero movies and of family life as well. Obviously at the start, it's not really a parody of a superhero movie. There's this bit at the start where there's this villain called Bon Voyage.
Actually, you know what? Parodies, really classic one, there is an ice pun. I can't remember what the line is, but it's, Mr. Incredible makes an ice pun to Frozone. Is his name Frozo or Frozone?
It's Frozone, yeah.
Frozone. And of course, ice puns are universally the what people think of when they think of the best superhero film of all time, Batman and Robin. Yeah. Where Mr. Freeze, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, has just a billion ice puns.
Former governor of California.
They're called comic book movies, not drama book movies.
Did you hear that after the Infinity War?
No, actually. Oh. I heard, it's a line from Ralph Schumacher. I think his name's, no.
Ralph Schumacher.
Oh, no. So the guy who directed Batman and Robin, has the surname Schumacher.
Yeah, he does.
But I can't think what his first name is. It's not Ralph.
Ralph Schumacher's a Formula 1
Yes.
driver.
But anyway, yeah,
I can't remember anyway.
what he said was they're called comic book movies, not drama book movies, and that was his justification for it being terrible.
If Ralph Schumacher actually said that, that'd be hilarious.
It's really throwing me off now. I'm going to Google it on my phone while you talk about whatever I assume you were going to talk about.
So this movie is kind of a parody of superhero movies, that part. So obviously you got Bon Voyage, particularly at the start, it's a bit of a parody. There's this villain who has a ridiculous name, and then Mr. Incredible helps the old lady by saving the cat in the tree. He has to help that and then catch the criminal right after, which is all good fun. This movie is also a parody of Family Life too.
Like The Simpsons.
Okay, that's weird. So I'll just give a couple of examples. When Bob, the dad, is saying to Dash, "Wow, you went so fast you didn't get caught on camera." When Helen, who's the mum, is trying to tell him off, that's a typical
Classic
family
men.
dynamic. Yeah,
You hate men.
Saying, "Oh, son, how did you do?" And the mum's like, "No, you can't. He's in trouble. You shouldn't be encouraging this behaviour." That classic dynamic. Then Dash and Violet fighting with superpowers, and Helen trying to break them up with her superpowers.
Joel.
It's relatable, it's fun, again, family dynamic, but with superpowers. So, you mentioned The Simpsons there, Michael.
Yes.
Okay, so how much did you write in your notes about The Simpsons?
Nothing.
I wrote not a ton. I wrote quite a bit because I don't know if I'm the first person. Obviously, you thought of this as well just then.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the first person to point this out, and I'm pretty sure if I typed in Simpsons and Incredibles into the internet, there'd be some article on it written by some film school person.
There'd be the Simpsons Incredibles crossover porn parody.
Okay. It's weird that your mind went to that place first, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah.
So this movie, this movie's like, it's kind of like The Simpsons with superpowers. There's this Treehouse of Horror episode with The Simpsons
Stretch
all having...
Dude and Clobber Girl.
I don't think it's that one.
Oh, I'm thinking of Remember, you're vulnerable to kryptonite. Jeez, Marge, tell the neighborhood.
Yeah, so great lines like that. And that kind of line would fit right in this movie. And so they all, I swear there's this Treehouse of Horror episode with the Simpsons having all these powers and arguing around the dinner table.
Oh, you know what? No, aren't you thinking of a Family Guy episode?
Or maybe it's Family Guy.
There's a Family Guy episode where it's where they get superpowers, and then Mayor West's like, the only way I'm going to defeat them is to get superpowers myself. And then he goes to a nuclear factory and rolls around in some toxic waste. And then the doctor's like, you have cancer. And he's like, oh, probably from rolling around in all that toxic waste. What were you doing? I was trying to get superpowers. Well, that's just silly.
What on earth were you trying to prove?
By the way, it was Joel Schumacher.
Joel Schumacher, that's the fucker. Yeah. So, I'm just wondering, maybe Brad Bird got the idea from one of those Treehouse of Horror episodes with The Simpsons. Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl, maybe it was that.
Stretch Dude. Yeah. Wait a minute. Xena can't fly. I told you, I'm not Xena. I'm Lucy Lawless. We watched an episode of Xena Warrior Princess. Yeah. It was on TV, and it was.
Was it good?
It was awful. I don't know why. For some reason, in 90s TV, the difference between like 90s TV and like 90s film was like incredible. Like 90s TV looks like it was made 100 years ago, and 90s film tends to look like it was made today.
90s film is the best era in film.
That's true. And then 90s TV is just the worst thing.
Fucking god awful.
Apart from The Simpsons, I can't think of a single good. Well, that's why everyone loves The Simpsons, just because there was no other good TV on in the 90s.
Friends started in the 90s.
Well, you know what, Luke? I was actually thinking about that, but I think Friends is somewhat overrated. Well,
I think it's definitely overrated.
Yeah, good, okay.
It's just not that funny. Well, you know me, I don't think anything's funny, apparently.
Yes, sure, you don't.
So, I just want to go through these characters in their family and, compare them to The Simpsons, Michael, because I think it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Well, actually, you know what's a good point? Today, the last Simpsons episode I watched was There's No Disgrace Like Home, which, if you don't remember, is the Marvin Monroe shock therapy episode where Homer is really upset that the family is so dysfunctional, so he decides to take to family counseling. And it's a very unique characterization of Homer, where he is portrayed as the responsible, conscious one, which is possibly more similar to Mr. Incredible. Well, I was going to say more similar to Mr. Incredible, at least in that.
I don't know. Kind of Mr. Incredibles, I wouldn't call him responsible. He's irresponsible in the fact that he does that police scanner thing and, you know, crashes through that brick wall and goes into the jewelry store to save those people.
Well, you know, Luke, I'll just let you do your comparisons.
Okay. See if you agree with these, though.
Okay.
See if you agree with them.
Marge and Elastigirl are both really hot.
Okay.
That's going to be your comparison.
So Mr. Incredible / Bob, as we've said, is a guy who has a midlife crisis, who hates his boss and hates his boring job. And his boss is also a stereotype of the worst kind of boss as well. So it sounds a bit like Homer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Also, I don't know why Mr. Incredible chose to be an insurance guy. Like, that must just be such a pathetic, just awful job, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
Yes.
Why would he choose to be an insurance guy? Like, maybe some people like, you know, being bloodsuckers, but he clearly isn't one of those people.
Yeah,
he's a hero.
Razzing on me aside, I agree with your essential premise that if he hates it quite as much as he clearly does.
Why doesn't he become a cop? Like, that's the obvious job for him. Catches the bad guys, you know, he can use his superhero abilities, maybe not as much as before, but still to a decent amount, you know, catch burglars and stuff. So why not just become a cop?
Why doesn't he become an American football player?
Because then there would be a lot of media attention on him, and he would be revealed to be a superhero, so that would be bad for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe for all we know, there are some actual superheroes playing American football, and we just don't know about it. Because nobody watches American football, do they, Luke? Because it's so boring.
Okay, right. So next up is Helen. She's a stereotypical suburban housewife who is cautious and also constantly nagging Bob. Very similar to Marge, I think.
Yeah, I would say she's slightly more headstrong and kind of, I guess, powerful, empowered. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes,
I'd say she's more empowered. Yeah. I'd say she's possibly closer to a Lois, actually. Like, in that she's got some of the same problems, but she's, you know, a bit more confrontational and you know, I mean, Marge's whole deal is she's a parody of. In fact, actually, if anything, you could make an argument that Helen is anomalously empowered. I guess, well, she's anomalously empowered given that it's the 60s and she isn't out burning her bra or anything. Unfortunately.
Okay. Why'd you have to be so creepy in these, Michael?
Marge burns her bra in an episode of The Simpsons too. It's it's the flashback one.
Like, is Marge hot though? Like, she's yellow.
I think that's actually.
No, don't consider that as a real question. Jesus. I don't know. No. We'll move on.
That will be our next subject of review. We'll have to do a special on that.
So we've got, obviously, I said Helen can be comparable to Marge, but again, she can be comparable to Lois as well, I guess. That's a good point. You got Violet, the shy.
Hey, there's a siren.
Yeah. Oh god, I need to get out of this rough neighbourhood and move to a nicer neighbourhood where police sirens aren't constantly.
To be honest, I have no idea what neighbourhood you live in. It could be somewhere horrible, like
it's like where we lived.
Tang Lane. Do you remember Tang Lane? Was that?
I live on Tang Hall Lane.
Yeah, that's the horrible place.
Yeah, but I live right at the top.
I don't know.
So it's basically on Hull Road. So it's
okay, yeah, that's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you don't live in Tang Hall Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, next up we have Violet. She's the shy, smart girl, you know, who wants boys to notice her. Kind of like Lisa, but not that much.
Well, actually, you know what? There's a switcheroo here because Lisa is more empowered than Violet.
Huh. How so?
Well, because Lisa. Well, I guess I'd say Lisa doesn't obsess over boys, and also Lisa is nerdy and I guess shy, but she's got a certain confidence about her in certain things. So you know, there's case for example when she becomes a vegetarian, Luke. She's not shy about it, is she?
No, I agree.
If Violet became a vegetarian.
Comparison. Yeah, this is the weakest comparison between the Simpsons characters and the incredible characters Violet and Lisa. I mean, Violet's kind of smart. She displays one bit of smarts, but that's about it. Yeah, and also she's a teenager, older than Dash. She's the older sibling. But I guess Lisa she had the mentality of a teenager. Did Lisa?
Well, yeah, that's the problem with The Simpsons. Yeah, like if Lisa was played by an actual 8-year-old, it would be hilarious watching her act out some of her dialogue and scenes.
Yes.
Like, I'd love to see a scene where an 8-year-old sings an old kind of folk song while her father goes on strike.
Yeah, so that's, again, the problem with Lisa, but whatever. Next
Whatever.
up, we have the strongest comparison, the fact that Bart and Dash, Bart basically is Dash. They are very alike. They're both in elementary school. Dash exhibits all the characteristics of Bart. He's this obnoxious 10-year-old who wants to be cool. So yeah, I think they're just very similar characters. And even before I thought of this comparison, I was like, you know what? Those two are, like, Bart is so similar to Dash. Like, Dash was modelled off Bart. Because I think that's the only real stereotype you can have for a 10-year-old boy.
Well, yeah, the other thing is there is a scene in an episode of The Simpsons where Bart it's the one where the teachers go on strike, and Marge is Bart's teacher, and Bart has left a pin on her chair, and he doesn't want her to sit on it because she's his mum. You know, he didn't realise it was going to be his mum as a teacher. So he runs to the front of the class and removes the pin. So, it was like poetry. It's kind of, they rhyme, because Dash runs to the front of the class and places a pin there. But like Bart runs to the front of the class and removes a pin.
God. I need to get to a safer place. Okay, so there you go. Bart and Dash, the strongest comparison, the most obvious comparison. Next up, we've got Jack. Jack is Maggie, the baby who doesn't talk, but is also mysterious. Like, Maggie
shoots people.
Maggie shoots people, you know. She says her first word in private when there's nobody around.
In the episode where she gets adopted by the Flanderses, she says, "Degdily doogly," and then she stands up and her head flips all the way around and she stares at Bart and Lisa.
Yeah. So that's basically her characteristic, Maggie. She's, you know, like I said, mysterious. Same as Jack. Jack, you don't know what power that he has until the end. And I don't even know what his power is. Like, he transforms
shape-shifting.
He transforms into all sorts of things, but he can also change, like, how much he weighs as well.
Oh yeah, because he turns into titanium.
Yeah. Very mysterious.
He's like Mystique.
Jack. So yeah, I just want to end this bit by saying The Simpsons, you know, didn't make fun of the stereotypical family first. I mean, there were sitcoms in the 1980s that did that, so you can't really say Sorry?
Flintstones.
Yeah, the Flintstones. Well, it wasn't really a family with the Flintstones, but yeah. So I don't think you can really say that The Incredibles copied The Simpsons, because obviously, like, these stereotypes existed before The Simpsons. Certainly with the housewife and the husband and the shy teenager and the annoying kid. But yeah, I just think the comparison here needed to be pointed out because they are quite significant.
Yeah, and I feel like 2004 was my exact year when I think The Simpsons got bad.
Huh.
My official stance is that The Simpsons got bad in 2004.
Yeah.
I guess the end of season 16, whenever that was.
I mean, if you want to make a popular and well-reviewed show or film, all you got to do is make one based on a family and make those characters parodies of, like themselves. Like Marge is the parody of the suburban housewife, Homer's the parody of the, stupid American adult, all of this kind of stuff. And it's kind of similar in The Incredibles. Obviously, those two pieces of media, the film and the TV show, both incredibly well received by critics and the public alike. So there you go. If you want to be successful, that's what you got to do.
Yes, I agree.
That's a large pause.
Sorry.
Yeah, also one more thing on the stereotype thing. There's one other scene which I think we need to mention, which is the Frozone scene.
Is it the one where he goes, "Where is my super suit?"
Yeah, where is my super suit?
Because there's a memed to heck YouTube clip where like every other word is replaced with a you know how people like to meme scenes.
Yes.
And I think you'd appreciate it, Luke.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll look at that after. So yeah, the Frozone scene is a typical argument between man and wife, and particularly between I think an African American man and his wife as well. I don't think, like, for example, we don't see Frozone's wife, but I imagine she is also black by the way she talks. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah. To be honest, Luke, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, it's a superhero It's just a typical argument, typical family dynamic, or typical husband and wife dynamic, with this superhero element thrown in. Relatable, and it's funny because it's relatable, because it's got the superhero twist. One last thing, it's also a bit of a James Bond parody as well, with the island and the beautiful assistant and the supervillain who likes to monologue. The movie makes fun of the monologuing by Syndrome pointing out that he is monologuing, but then Syndrome assumes that the hero, Mr. Incredible, is dead, even though he didn't see him die, which is another typical supervillain mistake. So yeah, the movie has its cake and eats it a bit there as well.
Yes, it does. It has its cake and it eats it. A bit like Mr. Incredible ate all that cake and got fat.
So yeah, I just went through how this movie parodies superheroes, family life, and also a bit of James Bond, and how it's similar to The Simpsons in that regard. But yeah, what do you want to move on to now?
I think I might have some general things to say about the plot. Okay, no, I'll talk about that under characters. I do want to say something I thought was quite interesting about this film, which was the way this film handled stakes. Because they're not leftovers. No, not really. I don't mean that kind of stakes. I mean, yes. I mean being stakes. Because obviously this is a family film, and there are a few you can't kill people moments. So there's a scene where Mr. Incredible throws a giant pod at some soldiers or some henchmen, and he runs past them, and you hear one of them grunt, and you have to hear one of them grunt, because otherwise Mr. Incredible just murdered some henchmen. But what I did kind of appreciate was two things. Number one, the people, obviously they had the people dying with the capes thing. So Syndrome died because of the capes. But they also had quite a few henchmen get wiped out, killed, unambiguously killed, when they're running around in those spinny things chasing the kids. So kind of, I mean, obviously something I've pointed out before actually is that in children's TV, for some reason, nobody can die. Nobody ever dies in children's TV. But for some reason, people can die in children's films. But usually it's just one person. The main villain dies. Hopper dies in Bug's Life. Someone else probably dies. Nemo's mum dies. There we go. So death does happen. But this is one of the only films I can think of for kids where you just get genuinely faceless henchmen crashing into things and blowing up into a flaming wreckage.
Yeah. So this movie's tone is a bit weird, because you've got the family-friendly element, this is a family battling these evil henchmen. But then there's the speech that Helen gives to her kids about how
that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that kind of is surprising and out of left field.
Yeah, so these guys aren't these Saturday morning villains. They will kill you, which they actually don't when they get the chance, but whatever. It's interesting. It makes the movie more serious.
Yeah.
Gives it more depth, but then again, there are some moments where the kids could have easily died, so then it's not that serious. So I don't really know what tone they were meant to, what tone they were trying to convey in the last act of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's
going to be serious, or is it going to be this fun thing that it's just this family of superheroes battling this evil guy?
Yeah, I guess it's confusing because obviously you're supposed to like the fact that the kids get involved. You're supposed to the kids are getting involved. The kids are fighting these superheroes, and obviously that's why they need to stow away, which is clearly stolen from Jurassic Park: The Lost World. That's why the kids need to stow away when going to the island.
When Dash is running about, he's it's very Return of the Jedi-esque as well.
That's true. Now this is pod racing.
So you're right.
Sorry, I'm not thinking. I realize Return of the Jedi is not the one. I'm thinking of Phantom Menace. It's hilarious.
I thought you were making a joke there.
I kind of was, but I was also, for some reason, I thought Phantom Menace in my head when you said Return of the Jedi, which was silly.
Disgraceful. You can't talk about Star Wars ever again, Michael.
Nope.
No.
So that's the podcast done. That's the podcast. No future for the podcast if we can't talk about Star Wars.
Yeah. So I think so kids getting involved, again, it's fun, but then they add this extra element of seriousness to it, when Helen gives that speech, and then constantly throughout the last act I was thinking when Violet nearly gets shot by the evil robot, I'm thinking, wait a minute, if this is actually properly serious, then shouldn't I be concerned for her safety? This is a 13-year-old kid or however old that might die. Dash almost dies several times as well, the robot shooting at him, but he narrowly dodges it. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't think that speech was that necessary, to be honest. It tried to shift the tone towards something more serious, and it just didn't need to be more serious.
Yeah, it's a good example of it's a good speech in like in that it's kind of like cool and it is a genuine tension raiser, but also it's a bit like this is supposed to be fun, family, adventure, blah blah blah. I just realised, Luke, that I was supposed to mention this under Wait, hold on a minute. Okay, yeah, I know where I am. So, something I wanted to talk about. You've mentioned your parody of it being a superhero film, and also it being, to be honest, I could have put this under concept if I was being technical. So, something I've heard people say about this film before is that this film is the only good Fantastic Four film. So there's a
Fantastic Four film.
Well, no, here's why. Okay, Luke, here's why you missed to interrupt me. Something people like talking about is why is it that Fantastic Four films always suck? Because Fantastic Four films do always suck, don't they, Luke?
Well, yeah, they have done, yeah.
So, and one of the things that you'll hear people say when you watch these dozens and dozens of videos of people talking about why the Fantastic Four films suck is they'll say, and it'll be in the comments and everywhere else, oh, there already has been a great Fantastic Four film, The Incredibles. Now, obviously, it is not called Fantastic Four. But there is, obviously, for example, Super Strong, that's The Thing, Super Stretchable, that's Mr. Fantastic. I don't know Invisible Woman, and then they changed it a bit with
The Human Torch, yeah.
Yeah, the Human Torch is replaced by some really fast guy. But there is a sense in which, this is I guess it's a really good superhero team-up film, which, who'd have thunk it?
Imagine doing superhero team-up film successfully.
Imagine doing that. But I do think it's worth noting. This is you could make an argument. It's genuinely a good superhero film. It's kind of stupid to say it's a good superhero film, even if you remove all the family and the comedy and blah blah blah, because obviously the film would feel very empty. It's a good superhero film because of the family and the comedy, but it's not just, for example, a film that is comedic and relatable and has superhero films in it. It's genuinely an entertaining superhero film, and something that I could do going off of that, depending on how done you are with the plot, is I have an opportunity for a great segue here, Luke.
Well, I just wanted to talk about the powers, but we're going to talk about that later, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll do that. I kind of want to talk about, I want to talk about the, okay, so it's a good superhero film. One of the things that makes it a good superhero film is that it has a good super villain plan
motivation
and supervillain. Yeah. So I that's what I want to talk about. I'm kind of going to use this to segue into characters too. So we'll discuss the plan and the villain himself.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, I think I'll say I have a bit of a criticism, which is I think that they missed a trick by not making it slightly more ambiguous or surprising who the supervillain would be. Because when I was a kid and I watched this, I think I was an idiot. And I think I may have been surprised by the fact that it was, oh, look, it's that person that kid they introduced at the beginning, he's the villain. But when you watch it as an adult and, they give him a name, he has, a proper line of dialogue about, you told me to believe in myself or something, in the prologue. You'd be like, obviously it's hard to say because I knew that he would be the villain, but it seems like very obvious. And you think, I'm surprised that they didn't make it a bit more like, have him be, I guess, introduce him more organically, and make it so it's not just like, hey, I'm here to have my motivation for being a villain established.
Yeah. I agree that it was obvious. I think it would have been obvious, but I've seen this before when I was younger, so I knew what was going to happen. I knew who was going to become the villain. So I can't really put myself in the shoes of somebody who didn't know what was going to happen. Because obviously I did. So, yeah, I think... Yeah, they could have done it a bit more organically. You're right.
Oh, question, Luke.
It's that big a question. It's not that big an issue in the movie.
Have you seen the film Wreck-It Ralph?
No, I haven't.
Okay, see, basically, I wanted to ask you. There's a development in the plot, and it's not very predictable. And I was going to ask you if you saw that coming, because it was a good example of a film for children that actually surprised me. And I was like, oh wait, that's happened. And I don't know, like maybe I'll just spoil it for you. How would you feel about having a film for children spoiled for you, Luke?
I'd be fine with it, to be honest.
Okay, so basically, in the film Wreck-It Ralph, it's another good example, by the way, of what if we took this thing, video games, and made it, a society, and then added in a social problem. And in this case, it's racism, by the way. So supervillains basically are subject to, or sorry, not supervillains, but video game antagonists are subject to racism, pretty much. They're hated by all the heroes. Anyway, all that matters is, throughout the film, they're talking about, don't go turbo. And turbo, they say like what turbo means, and it means that once upon a time there was this guy who decided to leave his game, and because he left his game, they shut down the entire arcade. It's basically the thing. And at the end, they set it up, and it's kind of just like a throwaway line. And then at the end, it turns out Turbo's the villain. And I know it obviously in that context it sounds like, well, obviously because they mentioned him, but yeah, when you watch it in context, it's very surprising and genuinely, like, I'd say Wreck-It Ralph is a really good film. Just an aside.
Good things about it. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a good example of setting up the villain and still having it be a genuine surprise when he shows up. And in this case, yeah, like I say, we wouldn't have, we'd seen it when we were young already, but yeah, you could see it coming. But apart from that, I mean, obviously it's still a good motivation. I guess he's kind of got double motivation in a way, because his first motivation is that he kind of feels, he's upset. Personally offended.
He wants to get back at Mr. Incredible, yeah.
And his second motivation is that he seems to kind of be rejecting the very... Oh, actually, I just realized there's a whole theme that we should talk about. And maybe I'm just going to talk about it now. The whole theme of there being a super class of people. And that is a recurring theme in this film. And I don't know if you're thinking about what I'm thinking about, but I'm thinking about the line that Mr. Incredible has where he says, it's not a graduation. He's just going from 5th grade to 6th grade. It's just another way of the society's finding to celebrate mediocrity.
So this is where I wanted to talk about politics, Michael.
Okay, you know what? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about it now. Why not? Because it's related to because the villain's line, just to kind of relate this to the villain, is he says, "When everybody's super, nobody will be."
Yeah.
So yeah, to go into your politics.
Syndrome's motivation is that he wants everybody to be able to have a participation trophy because he can't get a real trophy. Because, so basically, and he's portrayed as the villain. So, I just want to read this bit from Wikipedia, Michael, which you might find interesting.
Yes, I will.
Some commentator took Bob Bird's frustration with celebrating mediocrity and Syndrome's comments that when everybody's super, no one will be, as a reflection of views shared by German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, or an extension of Russian-American novelist Ayn Rand's objectivism philosophy, which Bird felt was ridiculous, but he stated that a large portion of the audience understood the satire, whereas the 2% thought I was doing the Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged.
Sorry, Luke, I feel like you just misread that because it's the Fountainhead.
Fuck, sorry, I'm so tired. Yeah, the Fountainhead. Oh, I said the Foundationhead. Jesus. Yeah. That's embarrassing. Some purported that The Incredibles exhibited a right-wing bias, which Bird also scoffed at. I think there's that's as silly of an analysis as saying the Iron Giant was left-wing. I'm definitely a centrist, and I feel like both parties can be absurd.
He's a rational skeptic.
Good old both sides stuff from Bob Bird.
He might as well be a Nazi.
Yeah. God, there's a lot of... We could spend 2 hours talking about that specific line, but yeah. So I think, obviously, he's just... I'm not sure Bob Bird's trying to make a point. I don't think he's an Ayn Rand fan. I think if anybody says this movie is conservative or hates, the that's not really what this movie is about at all. That's just a little side plot that I think they used because they could use because it lended to Syndrome's motivation.
Based on those comments, I could imagine Brad Bird, I don't know anything about him, but I could imagine him being a South Park fan. I bet he loves South
definitely.
Park. But I guess... One thing that I saw, because I would have assumed in a way that our interpretation of it being about politics would be kind of a presentist bias. So we're looking at it from our position now, thinking it had that, but it was so I would assume, or I kind of assumed that this whole participation trophy thing only, became a thing recently. But of course, one of the things that you find out,
the last few years.
The more you look into history, you realize that pretty much everything that people complain about in this generation, like every single time someone says, the problem with this generation is, it's been a problem in every generation for as long as there's been recorded history. So I guess, even back then people were talking about, I guess Ayn Rand probably Ayn Rand probably, wrote once, if she was on Reddit today, she'd be writing, "This generation and their participation trophies, blah, blah, blah. My name's Ayn Rand."
Yeah, I remember back in 2003 when I was playing for Appleton Boys Under-7s football team. We, at the end of year ceremony, even though we hadn't won anything, we all got a trophy. And I remember thinking, so this is back in 2003, so this is ages ago. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I didn't really do anything and I got a trophy.
Yeah.
How about that? So I imagine it was the same several years before then.
There's a good kind of like quote I've heard, which is obviously the criticism is baby boomers say, "Oh, millennials are the participation trophy generation." That's what people say. Millennials, they're entitled. Blah blah. I mean, obviously, all the bitching about millennials is a classic, but they say the participation trophy generation. There's a good quote which is that the only reason, number one, who was handing out the participation trophies, and number two, let's be honest, it's the people who are responsible are the parents who, like, kids don't care. Like, I genuinely don't think a single kid cared. Like, I remember, I actually got one of the most genuine, like, trouble I got in when I was in primary school was that they used to hand out merits, like merit kind of cards or something like that. I think they were called golden.
Oh yeah, I remember that shit, yeah.
They were called like golden certificates actually, and they weren't gold.
Gold stars. Yeah.
They were orange. But you got one at the end of the week and you pretty much got it if you hadn't done anything wrong. And ironically, like I say, the worst trouble I got in primary school was that they gave me it and I started folding it up into a paper aeroplane. Like, it was like a card and I was folding it up into a paper aeroplane and the teacher, like, shouted at me and they were like, what are you, we print those out for you. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous. Like, yeah. You genuinely, like, I had, like, so, like, you got them every single week if you just hadn't, basically, if you hadn't shot up the school, you got
they become meaningless.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we can agree, Michael, that participation trophies or participation certificates and what's a thingy? Syndrome. That's it. And basically, what Syndrome's advocating for, no one will be super. That's maybe taking it a bit too far. But certainly, okay,
I think his real problem is the murder. That's my principal objection, Luke. I don't know about you.
Yes. He is also a bad guy who murders people. Let's not gloss over that, I guess. But also, I think his whole philosophy on, when everyone's super, no one will be. He wants everybody to be the same because he's not special. That's taking it too far. But also the fucking Ayn Rand and her objectivism philosophy is also taking things too far.
Oh, so we're radical centrists in the middle then.
We're radical centrists when it comes to this issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, just to expand on that radical centrism thing, my kind of stance on it is participation trophies are stupid and redundant, but they aren't, the single worst thing in the world. It's not like I'm not one of those, like, there are people who say, like, the reason why Obama won is because, or, the reason why these Bernie bros want free college is because they think they should be allowed an education, or, the people who say, like, you think you should be allowed healthcare just because you're alive.
Why this country is going down the tube is because of these participation.
Yes, and that's ridiculous. I do think there is a sympathetic aspect to Syndrome, which is obviously, I mean, he's basically the idea of giving everyone superpowers is not in itself a bad thing, obviously, because his plan, in theory, was to use his zero-G gloves that he had, his gloves that just enabled him to pick anyone up, is a superpower in effect, and he was like, I'm going to sell it to everyone. And there is an interesting theme, especially explored in the Iron Man films, of should or superheroes not wanting to give up their superpowers, or not wanting to share their superpowers. And this film could have, if it felt like it, have explored that in more detail. It could have said, like, well, is it wrong for Syndrome to want to share the superpowers? But obviously it didn't do that, and I guess that would have been a big theme for the film to cover, so it makes sense it didn't. But yeah, generally speaking, I think, obviously, the main problem with Syndrome was that he was a murderer. He wouldn't have been as much of a villain if he weren't a murderer. But yeah, you get an interesting look into his philosophy, and it's a philosophy that does give you cause to think, which is good. Yeah. It's not just... it does.
Yeah, that's what makes these superhero movies better than average. Yeah, it's because, like, the villain has some motivation, and he has something that he isn't just, I want to destroy all destroy all good and replace it with evil. Like at the end of the movie, there's the Underminer that comes from underneath the ground, and he says, "I will kill all peace and love and goodness." Like, your stereotypical villain. He's not that, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I think props to Syndrome. Good villain, apart from the name, which we haven't really discussed, but I don't know, like calling somebody Syndrome.
Well, I guess you could make an argument that it's like he called himself Syndrome, and it's a reflection of his character being terrible at picking names. Win.
Yeah, but why did the writers choose Syndrome?
Well, what they did is they came up with a character who would pick a terrible name, and then they were like, what name would this character who would pick a terrible name pick for himself? And they wrote down a list of the worst names they could think of, and then they got a method actor. They got Daniel Day-Lewis in, and he spent months preparing for this role of being, I can't think of any other famous method actors. Oh, can we talk about the fact that the guy who plays Mr. Incredible's boss is distractingly the dinosaur from Toy Story. Like, he sounds so much like the dinosaur from the T-Rex from Toy Story that it was bothering.
He does. Well, because it's the same fucking
actor. And I was thinking, like, you can't do that. Like that's going to confuse future kids. Kids are going to be like, hey, people are going to, buy the Pixar box set, the classic Pixar box set. They're going to sit their kids down with it, and their kids are going to be like, hold a minute, why is the T-Rex look like a short human being and in charge of an insurance firm?
Actually, you know what, Michael? Now you've triggered something in my brain. I remember when these two old guys, when the Incredibles defeat everybody, defeat the killer robot at the end of the movie. And if you remember, these two old guys talk to each other and they say, "That's old school."
Yes, I didn't actually know what that was.
And then the movie's set in the 1960s, and it's all about how people are special, and we shouldn't treat people all equally. So you know what, fucking Brad Bird, you're a fraud. You actually are an Ayn Rand fanboy. You actually are a conservative.
Yeah.
Who thinks that and the centrist thing is like, that's what fucking right-wing people say. They say they're centrist because they're too embarrassed to call themselves right-wing.
Well, you know what? They're
embarrassed to align themselves with the Republican Party. So yeah,
they support open, rational debates, but the only people who they bring on to debate are neo-Nazis. It's the Dave Rubin effect. Hey there, I'm a liberal, but the only people I'm going to bring onto my show are anti-feminist, homophobic, anti-Islamic, fascists.
Yeah.
Because we need to hear their arguments.
Dave Rubin is like blackface for liberals.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Boom. Fucking nailed it, because I thought about it before. That's why. But yeah. So, okay. We should move on, I think. Now
obviously we talked about that character, Syndrome.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we move on to the... I guess maybe we'll do the characters in terms of their characterization first, and then I think we can wrap up by looking at the superheroes' powers. Okay, so the characters. First thing I wrote down is Elastigirl is thick.
Oh, I was going to talk about the characters with the powers.
That's okay. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. So we do it by.
Powers often defines the characters.
Yeah. Right. We'll do it by. Would you say? Okay. Here's the plan. Okay. You've got to come up with some kind of symbolic meaning for their powers. So in Elastigirl's case, it's because as a single mum, she's constantly having to, be flexible to, they make that joke in the film. She's having to stretch to, be in multiple places at once. That's the stretchiness it's a reflection of her. I feel like there's probably like a fancy philosophical term for it. It is a physical manifestation of her need to stretch and be flexible, and
her ability to be flexible.
Yeah, and how much her life is pulling her in different directions, Luke.
Yeah, I think that she doesn't have a job, so if she had a job, this physical manifestation would work better.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, she has so much to do, but she's so flexible. Like, imagine juggling a career and a couple of kids. That would really be flexible. But she's just a housewife.
Well, there's
that's a job in itself.
Yeah. Well, we should read. I don't know when we're planning on doing this, Luke, but I was thinking at this we could interrupt this podcast and have me read the entirety of The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, which is of course the number one book that criticised the idea of housewifery, of course famously written in the 1960s, one of the foundational texts of second wave feminism. Yeah, we'll do a special on that. But obviously, one of the things she says in that is basically that the problem with being a housewife is that you keep making work for yourself because you want to fill up the time It's the theory she established through her science and stuff that pretty much working mothers are able to do everything that non-working mothers do, but the non-working mothers just make everything take longer subconsciously. And there's your fact, Luke.
Oh,
There's your Betty Friedan fact for the day. But yeah, so anything else to say about Elastigirl?
Yeah, apart from have affairs with tennis coaches.
That's true, yeah.
That's something they can do.
Well, actually, I need to talk about that. It's kind of surprising how kind of, like, they really obviously set up that she should think that Mr. Incredible is having an affair.
Yeah.
She finds hair on his jacket, which I think is tenuous basis for thinking someone's having an affair, to be honest. Like, I find long hair, like, surprisingly, I find long hair on me, like, unreasonable amount, all things considered. Considering
you do live with, like, a couple of women.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, exactly. The thing is, like, I don't know, I guess you'd say it's a blonde hair. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then she picks up the phone and you know, she hears a woman who is a sexy woman, and therefore she has a sexy woman voice. She's like, you know, how long until you can be here? And, you know, it's like, and then there's this sad moment where she's like, you know, bye, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. And it's like, you know, but then she kind of like doesn't, I mean, after that, it's like the superhero thing. And then the person's like, where is she? And where is he? And she's like, he's at the conference. And it's like, oh, you know, did you just forget that he was literally, you know, on the phone to some sexy woman? Like, yeah, I'll come see you. So yeah, it was a bit weird that they kind of established that for like 2 scenes, and then it was immediately dropped.
Yeah, that's a good point. But there's the payoff later when Mr. Incredible is hugging
her
because she's let him escape, and so all for that payoff. You know, it's the trials and tribulations of you know, family life. Yeah. She thinks he's having an affair when he's actually not. You know, they're getting into an argument about it. You know
what, Luke? I hate to go a bit men's rights activist-y here, but I have to point out that it's arguably objectionable to if a man was shown punching another man on the suspicion that his wife was having an affair with him, then he would be considered a horrible, violent, controlling person. If I saw my wife, hypothetical wife, hugging a man and I punched the man in the face, it's like he's got anger issues, he's a danger, but because it's a woman, Luke,
yeah, it's too protective.
Yeah, but because it's a woman, it's fine. Because even though, and it's like, and I like how the woman doesn't even care that she got punched.
Well, you know, it's like how black people can say the N-word and white people can't.
Yeah, it's just like
switch places now.
Black people are allowed to say a word, but women are allowed to punch people in the face with impunity. They're very similar, Luke.
Well, yes, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get you. Anyway, yeah, I feel like I might have interrupted you a bit.
Well, no, I think we've talked about Elastigirl.
Right. Next one.
Well, I think we should talk about
pick your person.
Incredible.
Yeah, Mr. Incredible. How does his power? This is your challenge, Luke. Come up with a way that his power represents his character.
Well, he's the man of the house. He's the alpha male. He's the breadwinner. So
okay, Mr. Red Pill.
Must be his... Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Red Pill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense for his power to be strength, because I guess that's what men want to be seen as, you know, powerful and strong. Like, obviously, the comparison would be women. They want to be seen as, you know, feminine.
Yeah, it would be a bit weird to have a really strong woman. I mean, it would not gel with actual society.
Clover Girl?
Stretch student Clover Girl.
Yeah, you're right. So obviously, it makes sense for the man to be the stronger person, even though that might sound sexist, but it just, like, that's the thing, it just makes sense, and we can obviously get into reasons why that is.
Well, yeah, men and women are physically different, and I think even the most radical feminists, contrary to what anti-feminists will strawman them as, even the most radical feminists will admit men and women are physically different.
Yeah.
Speaking of straw men, I heard a really funny joke the other day. Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why?
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Glad you interrupted this podcast with that.
Yeah, you know what, I've actually got a thought in my head, and I need to remember it so I don't do that thing where I interrupt you, because I'm going to let you finish your point, but I'm going to remember my point.
Well, that was it with Mr. Incredible, basically.
Okay, good. So I've got something to say about Mr. Incredible.
Okay, go on.
There is a line where he says, at the end, I'm not strong enough, and, you know, you think he's referring to his physical strength or whatever, and then he says, you know, I'm not emotionally strong enough to handle the prospect of leaving you, or, sorry, of you dying or something bad happening to you. And I guess I think it's interesting because the film didn't actually play off this as much as they could have, because obviously you could have the thing be that Mr. Incredible is fiercely independent and wants to do things on his own, but they never really established that. Like, so it's kind of, it obviously, you know, later on, so it kind of makes it meaningless when he says, you know, I'm going to do this on my own, and the reason he wants to do it on his own is because he doesn't want to lose them. Well, you know, they've never established any kind of prior history of him wanting to do things on his own. It just seems that he wants to do things, and he has to do them on his own because he needs to be secretive. So I would say, yeah, it was kind of clever reincorporation to have the idea of his emotional strength in contrast to his, you know, physical strength, but also the thing that he's talking about that relates to his emotional strength is not something they've established. So kind of good, but kind of bad, or kind of wasted.
Yeah.
Next character, Luke. Pick him.
Sorry?
Pick him. Pick your next character.
Dash. He's got a simple power. He's really fast. Nothing complex.
Oh,
just like him.
I was going to say it relates to hyperactivity, which I think is, you know, a common thing. Like, I mean, you know, the whole. I feel like those kids. Yeah, so I think you can see that.
Yeah, I just thought, you know, he's like fast, so, you know, it's just simple enough, and he's not a complex guy. He's Dash, kind of like Bart, as we mentioned before. Next up is Violet, which is the most obvious one, I think. Like,
yeah,
she's
she wants
shy.
to be invisible.
Yeah, she's a shy teenage girl, so it makes sense that she's invisible.
Can make a massive force field.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say about Violet's characterization, this isn't actually to do with her powers. I did think that the characterization of her as an angsty teen at the beginning was a bit on the nose. It kind of reminded me of, so in Inside Out, I don't know if you've seen it yet or anything, but one of the things is that
I have seen it, by the way.
It's about like a girl and her angst, kind of, and there are several bits in the film where she literally just flips on a dime. She just suddenly gets angry and suddenly gets upset and whatever else. And obviously it makes sense in Inside Out because her emotions are running havoc. But in this, it's like, there is literally a moment where Violet goes from, and this is more like obvious at the beginning, like eventually they kind of move away from the family stuff, but yeah, there's a bit where she literally just, there's two people having a conversation that has nothing to do with her. I think like, Elastigirl saying, you know, you just need to be normal, and then Violet just like, what do you know about being normal? And it's a bit like, it seems like conflicts that wouldn't actually be, you know, likely to happen.
I mean, that's kind of her character though, like she just wants to be like, just like everybody else. She just wants to fit in, which is perfectly normal for someone like her to think like that. So, like, her anger at being not normal would make sense.
I felt like it was, I felt like the anger itself made sense, but I feel like the way that she expressed it in kind of like what felt like an obligatory outrage, as if it was kind of just like, I need to be angry about this thing to show that I'm, you know, to show what my motivation is or whatever, what my issue is, my conflict.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I just want to say one more thing about the powers that these people have.
I have one more general point about the powers. Let's see if we happen to say the same thing.
I think they use their powers in a fun way.
Oh yeah, that's good. You're right.
Yeah, right. So obviously,
it's another example. Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm interrupting a bit, but it's quite a quick point. I just want to say it's another example of how this is like a better Fantastic Four, because in the Fantastic Four they all have these different powers, but you know they never really use them in innovative ways. Fantastic Four could learn from the Incredibles.
Mm-hmm. So there's this scene where Dash walks on water. And as he does that, he like laughs as he realizes he's running on water, which I think like it's unexpected. It's perfectly set up, and his reaction is just brilliant.
That's a very good scene.
And there's another great scene in which he finishes second in the race in that 100-meter dash or whatever, and like all of the family are just like, no, come second, or slow down, and like the guy next to them is like, what the hell are these people talking about?
That's a great scene.
Yeah, that's another great scene. Yeah, just using these powers for...
Something about Dash is very funny.
Okay, so there's also Elastigirl when she gets stuck in those three doors. That's a good scene.
Oh yeah, it's a great scene.
She acts as a boat or a parachute. Violet being a force field, and then Dash running up and down in that force field. Or
like a hamster ball.
Running.
Like a hamster ball.
Like a hamster ball, yeah. Yeah. All very fun. They use these Incredibles powers in very good and innovative ways, like you say. So props to them for that.
Yeah, I wanted to say one very general thing about the superpowers, which I was kind of thinking in a lot of these films, it's kind of like they have the additional superpower, but it seems like kind of increased endurance automatically comes with the territory. Mm-hmm. So when Elastigirl, she's like holding up a truck while gripping onto a plane that has flown from some island, I guess in the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. Because there aren't any tropical islands in the Atlantic. The Atlantic is the most boring ocean. So she's flown from an island in the Pacific Ocean to New York, right? It is New York?
No, it's Metroville.
Oh,
It's a fictional
it's a fictional New York.
city. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll just assume it's on the East Coast. So she's flown, all that way
Actually, I think it's in California.
on a ship or on a plane. Now, I could physically, strap myself onto, or let's say even grab hold of, because that's what she's doing. I could grab hold of the top of the plane. I think I'd be dead at the end of it, Luke. I don't know about you, but I think, and the thing is, no aspect of Elastigirl's powers specifically relates to everything that would kill me about being, grabbing onto a plane would also affect Elastigirl.
This sounds like a nitpick, Michael.
Well, the other thing is, I'm sorry, yeah, this is, actually, this is funny. This is the thing, I said, I was going to have this as a nitpick.
Yeah.
And then I said, we're going to talk about so yeah, this is why. Because the other thing is, obviously, she's holding up a truck, and it makes sense she can stretch to hold up the truck, but she's still using her hands to hold up a truck. So, kind of super strength. So basically what I'm saying is, sometimes in superhero films, it's like, because of the circumstances that their powers put them in, there has to be an implied, extra powers involved. Like, she was not like, hold a minute, I'll freeze to death and run out of oxygen being flown on a plane.
Yeah.
She was just like, yeah, sure, I'm down for it. I'm stretchy. Stretching fixes everything.
Bit of bullshit there. In this superhero movie.
I wanted to say one thing about some other characters who aren't main characters.
Well, so did I, so let's go.
Oh, that's good. I thought maybe we were moving away from it. Pretty much, yeah, a lot of great minor characters, tentatively. I just want to, mention... I'm going to be in charge of mentioning characters now, Luke.
Go for it.
Really like the babysitter. Really like the kind of joke with it that she, was... I don't know why, for some reason, just it was just good character design, and, her lines were just, I can't even do her voice, but you could tell she was wearing a retainer.
You could tell because you could see it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, sorry, yeah, but you could tell from the voice that she was wearing a retainer.
Yeah.
And... yeah, it was, again, you felt like she was even though she was literally in one scene, you felt like you knew her. You're like, oh, that's that character. I can't remember her name.
Well, it's another stereotype, Michael.
Oh, I'm the nerd.
Hey, I'm just saying, this movie and The Simpsons, they do well because of their stereotypes. If you're making a fun movie, just add in stereotypes and you are golden.
Well, you know what Simpsons character she reminds me of?
What?
There is a character who is not seen in very many episodes of The Simpsons. She is shown to be a friend of Lisa, and she wears braces, and there is an episode I haven't seen in ages, actually, where she kisses Bart, but she is dared to kiss Bart. And then the kids, Lisa and her friends, hunt Bart down throughout the entire house before pinning him down.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that is who, and I have no idea, she's hardly in any episodes, but that's who she is.
That's who she is.
Other good characters.
Edna
Boss
Mode.
character we've kind of already said. I was going to mention that, but Emma Mode was going to be my big finale, Luke.
Oh, right, so I'm sorry.
Do you know who plays Emma Mode?
Sorry?
Do you know who plays Emma Mode? Because I do. And
I believe it's Brad Bird.
Yeah, you're right. So, which I think is interesting. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I heard a story about that. Apparently he was trying to find somebody to do her voice, and he kept giving examples of what this character would sound like. And in the end, he couldn't find anyone nearly as good as him, so he just did it himself.
Yeah, well, that's classic, and just like the heroes of Ayn Rand's books, he realized that he couldn't rely on society to help him, so he did it himself.
Exactly.
What a hero!
Edna. If we're talking about Edna Mode right now,
yeah,
which I think would make sense. Obviously, her character's really fun. I've said that word so many times. Enjoyable. Her line "No capes" is pretty famous. It's a great catchphrase, and I think another bit of a stereotype as well, but that's what works. That's what makes her character so fun.
Yeah, you're right. And other character, I feel like I mentioned a character, and then you I was going to say the boss. We've already kind of mentioned him, so I just wanted to say, the boss is the boss is a massive stereotype. You can make an argument his entire. My criticism of this film attacking the insurance industry was a bit of a stereotype. It was a bit of a joke, but it's also kind of true. It has to be said that as much as I find my job cringy, it does hold true. Insurance companies nowadays seem to be more like, every company nowadays is like, hey, we're socially conscious. We've got a purpose. And I I actually I can't think of any person I know who works for a company. I mean, admittedly, I don't know that much about the intimate details of other people's jobs, but I think there are relatively few companies nowadays that aren't fun. Like, having been to quite a few job interviews, like a lot of the places I went to, they were like, hey, we've got an office puppy. You know, like every single company you go to, it's like, hey, we're fun. You know, oh, we've got a dartboard. You know, something. You know, maybe you want a break, just play some darts. Like that's what working is like now. It's like that's every company's like, oh, we're fun. And
well, I can't wait to join this workforce.
It's embarrassing, but yeah. So yeah,
it sounds like you're drinking the Kool-Aid, Michael.
The stereotype of soul-sucking jobs is kind of not as actually true, and the stereotype of a boss who's just like, yeah, the idea of an insurance company boss being like, literally, we're never going to pay out on any of our policies. It's a bit like the plot to Saw 6.
Okay, you don't need to go into that, Michael.
No,
you don't need to.
Sometimes my favourite ones are the ones where I bring up the plot to a film and then don't even explain the plot.
Yeah, you shouldn't have brought the film up anyway. You shouldn't have done it. So yeah, is that it?
Other characters. I guess maybe we could talk about Syndrome's assistant.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I just wanted to say she's not that interesting.
Correct.
But you know what? There is another classic example. So yeah, last week we did Oceans, and Julia Roberts leaves some guy because he basically pretty much just said, you know, I don't care about her, but you know, maybe he didn't really mean it. Maybe Syndrome really was just calling his bluff, is what I'm saying. Maybe Syndrome, he knew Mr. Incredible wouldn't do it, and maybe she's just being unreasonable.
Syndrome is, yeah.
I guess you could make an argument. It's very kind of lucky. In fact, actually, I kind of want to talk about this. Sorry, this is a bit like of a tangent, but it's to do with the film. It seems to me like Mr. Incredible gets captured way too often, and it means that they have to keep coming up with like loads of different ways of rescuing him, and it just seems a bit unnecessary to me. Like, why not? Why just have him be rescued and captured like 2 times and have 2 clever ways of rescuing him? He basically escapes different times each time. It's a bit silly.
Yeah, well, it works for the plot. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't have that big a problem with that. Okay.
I hated it.
We done?
Yep, that's all the characters that have ever existed in this film. Oh, actually, I like the kid who said that was cool.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, I don't know, it was something amazing, I guess. And we are done.
We are done.
Do you want to wrap up, Luke?
Yeah, I'll wrap up. So I think what we've done here with The Incredibles is we've picked this movie apart a bit. It's just because the majority of this movie is just like quite good. It's solid. It's fun. It's a really fun movie. I think it's, you know, that's the thing. Like, it's something every audience member can relate to, apart from if you're an orphan. It's so simple. You know, typical family life with superpowers thrown in. Actually, there should be a second one. There should be a second one. There is a second one coming out soon, and I hope there's a joke in there about like family activities or family bonding. You know, and the family's deciding that they need to do one of these 2 things because, you know, they're not spending enough time together, and then there's a suggestion about which city they could save or which villain they could defeat or whatever. You know, that would kind of be, I think, a good joke to do. That's kind of what the jokes are like in this movie. So yeah, like I said, enjoyable, amusing, some issues, some things that we think could have been done better, but overall it's a really good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it and would happily watch it again, and for that reason I think I'm going to give this one, Michael, an 8.5 out of 10.
That's not a bad score there, Luke.
No, it's not a bad score.
So this film, Luke, is a good film. It is a very good film. And like you say, we have kind of picked it apart. I was kind of thinking to myself, you know, this is going to be quite a short review, and it's not, you know, it's not been our longest review, but it's not been absurdly short. It's been reasonably like average length, and that is because I think we were, you know, really just. I suppose, to be honest, we were more having a conversation about the film than reviewing it. I mean, obviously there was reviews in there, but a lot of it was just kind of, you know, facts about their superpowers, things like that. And I think really the reason for that is that if you were reviewing this film, like just kind of talking about the stuff that relates to, you know, the quality of the film, then obviously, you know, some of what we said would definitely go in there, but really you'd just be saying, you know, it is fun. It is enjoyable.
Yeah, this wasn't really that much of a review. You are correct.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, obviously with films like this that are children's films, it's always worth noting that, you know, if you have kids, then your kids are going to watch crap if you put it in front of them, but then you'll have to watch it too. So if you have kids and it's like, oh, you want a film, well, make them watch good films, and this is a good film.
Can I just say, Mike, I like the idea of like parents who've got kids listening to this review and
I
taking
know.
our opinions seriously, and then hearing about all the fucking stuff that we mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, I know, I was thinking that would be, yes. One thing actually, you know what, Luke, I have to bring this up because I've been thinking about it and I was going to bring it up like at the end. Have you seen, there's some stuff going around which is like people telling parents not to take their kids to see The Incredibles 2 because The Incredibles 2 should only be watched by people who watched The Incredibles 1 when it first came out as children. Like, I've seen like these comments, it's like, no, dear parents, don't take your kids to The Incredibles 2. It
Where
was
have you
made
seen
for
these
me.
comments?
Oh, okay. On like Reddit. Is that a surprise?
That doesn't count.
Wait. Attention, parents. Incredibles 2 come out June 15th. Do not, I repeat, do not bring your punk-ass children to see this movie. It's not for them. It's for adults like me who have waited 13 years to see what kind of powers Jack ended up with. This has 26.4 thousand retweets and 50.8 thousand likes.
What's subreddit's on?
It's posted. It's actually a Twitter screen cap, and it's posted on it's posted on a subreddit that is actually mocking it. It's the gatekeeping subreddit, which is for basically saying that you're not allowed to do this. But yeah, so so on Twitter, it's got 26.4 thousand retweets and 50.8 thousand likes, and it's saying, parents, don't take your children to see this children's film at the cinema because it's for me, an adult, a genuine adult who is still obsessed with a film I watched when I was 13. And also, the stupid thing about it is we already know. Like, I think it's pretty clear what powers Jack had. He had powers to transform into things. I thought that was kind of obvious. Anyway,
Yeah.
so basically, what I'm saying is that if you are a man-child who is personally angry at children for watching your Incredibles 2, then sort yourself out, really.
Okay.
But anyway, okay, so I haven't actually placed this film, ranked it. So, I haven't actually written it into its place yet, because I've been doing that for a while, but then what happens is we have a conversation about it, and I kind of doubt myself afterwards. So So I'll say, first of all, it's better than Zootopia. To me, the question is it better than The Disaster Artist? And to be honest, Luke, I think you'll be happy with my response. Yes.
Thanks for that.
But I suppose the more I don't think it's better than Iron Man. I think the one thing that it is in competition with is the Grand Budapest Hotel. And again, this is a classic example of kind of art versus fun. The Grand Budapest Hotel is obviously a very well-made film, objectively speaking, and it's also a quite fun film, but I'd argue The Incredibles is more fun. I think on balance, I'm going to say just because while this film is good, it's also kind of a formulaic film. It is a film that is kind of good because it obeys, a lot of traditional film formulas, and, it is ultimately still a film for children. And while I'm not going to say like, oh, it's good for a kid's film, as if, it's not objectively a good film. I mean, it is still going to be my number 7 best film. But yeah, that's where I'm going to place it. So I'm going to place it below the Grand Budapest Hotel, above The Disaster Artist, in a comfy number 7.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you for that, Michael. So yeah, there we go. Like I said, I think we couldn't really review this movie that well, because it's hard to do that when a movie is quite simple as this one is. But yeah, we gave it our best shot. Thank you for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on The Incredibles, because of the release of The Incredibles 2 14 years after its initial release back in 2004. Thank you for being here, Michael. Who have you been?
Michael.
And I have been Luke. Thank you for joining us. We are going to hopefully do
Star Wars special.
Yeah, that's
Well, actually, no, hold on, Luke. There's an outside chance that I will have that up before I have this up. So maybe this will be up before that. It depends. Well, are we doing it on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay, it's unlikely then. But so yeah. So
and then the next actual film that we're doing is Jurassic World, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching or listening, and goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.